Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
Hi, this is Ed Cohen. You're on Global TV Talk Show. It is a little after 8 a.m. here in Southern California. Our very, very special guest today is Dr. Emiliana Borrelli, and she's professor of microbiology and molecular genetics, the School of Medicine at the University of California in Irvine. PhD from University of Naples, and she's been at the UCI, which is the University of California in Irvine, for several years. Her research interests, I'm reading this, of course, dopaminergic neurons, pharmacology, animal models, neurological and neuropsychiatric diseases, and she has won many awards, and I'm really honored to have you, Doctor. You were awarded the Knight of the Legion of Honor by the country of France for your work having to do with dopamine, and this is linked, I'm just going to paraphrase here quickly, linked to Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, addiction, and endocrine tumors. Studies conducted at the molecular, cellular, and behavioral levels aim to uncover the molecular mechanisms by which dopamine receptors signal controls neural functions and behavior. And your research goes a long way towards understanding how all this works or doesn't work. Is that right, Doctor? Welcome.
Right. It's exactly right. So I have been working for the last, from the beginning of my career on the dopamine system. And dopamine is really important to regulate many functions of our body that range from motor activity, so how we move, and in fact, Parkinson is due to the degeneration of the neurons that make dopamine. But dopamine is also important for reward. It's very important for, for feeling well. And so, and that's the part that is hijacked by drugs of abuse, like cocaine or opioids or all that, because these drugs, what they do, they like I say, they hijack the dopaminergic system and giving, this pleasure the first time that you encounter a drug, but then, in some individual, this will lead to addiction. Addiction is a disease. It's not like just like in the past, it was thought that people with addictions were not able to react or something like that. It's not the case,
Yeah. So if I may jump in and ask just in plain English a question about addiction. So I know there's a lot of research going on about all that, but what levels of whatever would be missing that would allow addiction to take place?
That's an extremely good question, and that's what all of us are trying to figure it out, in the sense that we don't know yet. What we know is that there is a percentage of the population which is probably close to 15% that will become an addict upon the first use of the drugs. And then there are many others, it's a bell-shaped curve. So there are many others that can take drugs, not a very high level and all along their life without becoming an addict. But what makes these 15% of people vulnerable to drugs, it's not clear. So we are all, in the scientific community, we're all trying with different type of approaches to figure it out, what makes the brain to respond in a way that shouldn't, like, and become then addict to drugs.
Interesting. Mark Colo, a Parkinson's patient and co-founder of the charity findneurohelp.org, and this is how we have come to produce these medical health and well-being talk shows. Mark Colo, jump in here. Say hi.
Hi, great to be on the show. Great to be with Emiliana.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Mark Colo, if you could just do about 30 seconds or so on how you all met with Dr. Borrelli and her late husband.
Sure. I had a good friend, Mark Mapstone, on the campus at UCI. I relocated him from the East Coast. My whole career was kind of interesting. In the last 5 years of my career, I moved about 100 research scientists, many of them to UCI campus. One of them was a gentleman named Howard Federoff, who later became the CEO of UC Irvine. He had some difficulty sometimes in communicating with me because I had no clue what he was talking about. But he became a friend of mine. And through him and the other relationships on campus, I got to know a little bit about about Emilio Borrelli and Paolo Sasson Corsi, who was the head of the department for epigenetics, and brilliant man. But I always get to know what quality people are by talking about some individuals who are lower on the staff totem pole, and that know these individuals inside and out. I get the true story. And of all the scientists on campus, these two individuals, Emiliana and Paolo, were two of the most respected professors on the entire campus. And I got that from more than one source, and one was Jeff Fisher, who was in charge of all the campus moving laboratories on campus and all around campus. So he was very, very respected man. He and I were very good friends, but they said, yeah, these two are gold. So we've got one of two of the greatest researchers and scientists on UCI campus.
Now, he was involved, Dr. Emiliana, your late husband was involved with Estee Lauder. Would you like to get into that a little bit?
Like Estee Lauder is a cosmetic firm, and so they are interested because they do research, and they're interested in understanding how and if there is a circadian, so like how even the skin can change during the day or night. And so whether some creams or like some cosmetic product that they make could eventually help in reconstituting, like the skin or like, like what cosmetics do. And they are interested in the circadian, like how the cells are regulated during the day and the night.
So
and
this is all about heartbeat, or how the skin tissues react, a sort of timing kind of a thing.
And that's because one of the discovery that Paolo made is that not only, like the brain, there is a part of the brain that regulate the night and day activity. And so, for example, even to falling asleep, like is something that is circadian. So every day, you at a certain time you become you fall asleep. And so what Paolo discovered is that it's not only the brain that regulates that, but there are clocks inside each of our organs. And so this is true for the skin, for the liver, for the lungs, for any of these. And then there is a big, maybe the brain center is the one that regulates all these, like in a larger, how to say, in a more orchestrates all these rhythms in the different organs. And so Estee Lauder is very interested in that. And what is also it's wonderful is that, for example, they will be offering a fellowship in Paolo's name to like to award the student that will continue studies in epigenetics and in the circadian type of switches.
Interesting. Fascinating, actually. So, Mark Nadich, if you could go back into your pharmaceutical days, and thinking of that just as an aside, I have met Sergei Gabatov as a result of Angela Lane's introduction, and he's now based in Irvine, overseeing the acquisition and the expansion of AbbVie into Latin America, and they call it aesthetics, which is all about skin, right? Mark Nadich?
Yes, absolutely. That was an acquisition of a company a couple years ago. I had been retired, so I don't know all the details, but yes, that's exactly what it is. In fact, Doctor, thank you for what you just said. And Ed, I suffer from rosacea, and I'm actually was just at the doctor last week and trying to figure out how we can kind of make improvements in my own personal journey on that as well. So, but yes, it's amazing to see just the complexity and how everything does connect and reconnect, and what you do really matters, and how you do it matters. So, but go ahead.
I mean, something that we have recently published, was a collaboration with my husband Paolo, where we have been analyzing the brain of mice that have been genetically modified to understand again addiction. And we made the link between the brain. So when you take cocaine, for instance, you have there are many things that happen to your brain that have been described by many scientists. But with Paolo, what we were wondering, we said, is that something that is going on in the brain linked to the function of another organ, like, the liver? And so we analyzed these mutants that have a very specific mutation in a part of the brain. Upon cocaine treatment, what happened to them, not this time at the level of the brain, but at the level of the liver, and they react in a completely different way. So, which kind of shows why I am saying that is that there is still a lot that we need to learn on the connection between the brain on one side, that is the master regulator or whatever we are doing, and then the organs. There are some things that we think that they function on their own and, just on what we eat or what we do, but it's not only that. There are also signals that we don't understand yet how they are connected, but they do work. I mean, organs are connected, and it's very interesting, and hopefully this will give a key to understand better these diseases in the future.
So a lot of people, there's so many people who are impacted by, say, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, I guess, also. That's part of it, isn't it? Alzheimer's?
No, it's a different.
Okay. Okay. It's interesting.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by Porchlight Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
And by airs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at airs.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
Stop dreaming and start living overseas.
International lifestyle consultant Emily Braun can help you seamlessly transition to your new life in your dream destination. Whether you are a retiree, a digital nomad, or a mobile executive, Emily Braun can make your transition overseas a success. Visit emilybraun.com.
Coutalis is a global group with a worldwide footprint. With 16 agencies in 10 countries, Coutalis offers companies and mobile professionals a unique combination of HR services and options. Find us at coutalis.com.
Take your communication skills to the next level. Barbara Bolt of Bolt Global has a passion to make you shine. As our globe expands, effective intercultural communication and presentation is a must. Visit boltglobal.com.
So, Doctor, who are you teaching at the university? Who, if you could describe who your students are?
My students are scientists, so they are like either undergraduate or graduate students and postdoc. So the postdocs are those that have received already a PhD, and they come to specialize in one particular area. So my teaching is mostly in research. So I like to transfer, like the interest and the love that I have for science to these young people, and trying to have them ask questions, never accept, like what you are looking without criticism, without even the curiosity to say, okay, I have learned that, but now what is the next question that I want to ask? Because in my career, my whole career, what I have, now if I make like, I don't know how to say, a summary of what I have learned is that we still don't know anything. Like it's amazing how the more you go into the mechanisms and how things work and how these neurotransmitters work in the brain, the more you discover. So it's not it's a journey that has not yet, like arrived to the end of this whole, like how everything works. Because if we would know how everything works, there would be a way of coping with diseases. And so making drugs that are more and more refined, that can, like hit a particular type of cell or neuron, and then help people to live normally.
So I'm having trouble putting words in my head here. Wait a minute. But every person mechanisms are different, although they're organized the same, I guess. So that's why it takes, and you really can't, I don't know, can you experiment on people?
That's again a very, very important and, like a very important point that you raised. And what I think personally is that, what we think is that, like we are chemical, our brain works on chemicals. So what makes us different? It's the amount of chemicals that we have in our brain. So if you want, it's a way not to recognize the soul or like like what we are, our reaction, our chemical reaction in our brain. And so, and this is very well shown, but like you were mentioning Parkinson or Alzheimer, these two disorders are due to neurotransmitters that start to be either too low or too high. And then, like you get these effects that you don't want. So for example, in the case of Parkinson, we have been studying Parkinson for the last, I would say, at least 20 years. And Parkinson is, we know the cause of Parkinson is the degeneration of these neurons. So not much dopamine goes to the brain. But then, like there are treatments like the levodopa, which is a precursor of dopamine. So you can kind of compensate the lack of dopamine that comes from these neurons that are gone with a chemical. But at the moment, when you give like this levodopa treatment to people, what you're doing, you are activating all the dopaminergic system, all the neurons, all the receptors for dopamine. And that's not what you want, because this is the reason why later on, once you start to take levodopa, then there are side effects of the treatment that are due to the fact that you're not only stimulating the neurons that you would like to stimulate, you're stimulating all of them.
Uh-huh.
So a part of studies in my lab are just aimed at that, trying to link the receptors and the neurons that respond to motor activity for dopamine, and how to hit only those neurons and not everything else.
So that's why it takes so much research and a long time, because you're never really sure. You may get one result that's really interesting, but then something may change because of that, input, something may change in that same person or the same animal. And then you got to start over, or you try another dose or.
With the animals, it's easy because those are genetically modified. And so we know that they, for all their lives, they will be in a certain way. For humans, it's different because, of course, it's very limited what you can do with humans. But that's why the importance of having animal models is fundamental to study human disorders. And I have to say that even a little mouse can, it's a great model to understand how diseases like Parkinson, arise. And for example, all the side effects of the levodopa, that's what we are studying currently in the lab, take place. And so we can identify which type of neurons are affected, and if there is a pharmacological intervention that can be made to reduce these side effects.
Yeah. Marcolo, I know you're off camera, but can you hear me? And would you like to speak?
Well, I would love to speak at it.
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Hear me all right?
You're breaking up.
Okay. Speak loud.
No, it's staccato. Yeah.
No. Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to say here that signs of Parkinson's on the onset, it's typically a tremor, and if you notice the tremor, maybe steps try and prevent onset.
Yeah, Mark, let me interrupt for a minute here. You're breaking up and we can't hear, but we see what you're saying on the transcript on the screen. If you would like to send a message in the chat to Dr. Borrelli, then maybe she could respond directly to you, but we cannot hear you well.
Okay, I will do that, Ed, but I can't type when I stress. It aggravates the symptom of Parkinson's.
Okay.
All of
Yeah, okay. All right, and we have to end in about 6 minutes.
Yep.
So, Doctor, the stage is yours. Why don't you sum up and tell us what's on the horizon and what, and I want you to come back at another time when we have more time, and perhaps we could do another edition based upon the content here. So please, Dr. Borrelli, take it from here.
Well, I don't know. I am sorry that I cannot hear Mark and respond to his question. I think for example, for what you've said related to Parkinson, but as well as Alzheimer, what scientists are doing right now is trying to trace, first of all, what are the neurons in the brain that are the target of this deficiency, because by understanding that, you can better hit the target instead of having this large type of treatment that stimulate everything, which have benefits, but they have also a lot of drawbacks. So, for example, in my lab, we are studying the side effects that are linked to the use of carbo-levodopa, and trying to block because when you take these compounds to reduce the tremors or help with motor activity, then you have what is called some movements that are called dyskinetics, which means that are movements that are no longer, the brain cannot control. So the limbs start to move on their own. And this is, of course, bad, for the patients is a real problem. And so what we are trying to do is to see how we can block that. First of all, understand why this dyskinetic movement arise, which part of the brain is involved in that, and what we can do to block this dyskinesia. So we have recently identified some connection between the dopamine and the cholinergic system, that the acetylcholine is also very important in motor control. And so we are trying to use these compounds to reduce these side effects in mice. And then hopefully, once we show that, and we have strong basis in preclinical studies, then these studies can proceed to clinical studies in humans. So, that's what we do in labs. We generate the background for clinical studies, so that we can show that what we do is not toxic to animals, at least, and it's not causing some other unknown effects that you don't want to have. And then identify targets, and then once these targets are identified, companies, industries, they can develop new drugs.
So to sum up, for instance, just assume for a second, wild and crazy idea popped into my head. So I am able to, so far, God willing, I'm able to move my hands where I want them. I could sit the way I want. I can ask a question that makes some sense. But somebody with an impacted connection can do some of that. And that's what we see. Okay. And so would it help if I donate myself to you and you can see what I'm doing, and then you can try to make a new Ed? And so
that's exactly what we do with our genetic.
Like Frankenstein.
Yeah, we do have, in our studies, we have these genetically modified animals, but that we compare with mice that are totally normal and not affected by in any way. And so what we do, we study always the two types. So what we call the wild type, so the normal, the control, and then we have the modified ones. And then what we do behavior. So we first analyze the mice and see how they move, if they can coordinate movements, if they can work normally like the control mice. And then we take their brain and we analyze the gene expression at the level of DNA, at the level of, how cells work, like there are all these other studies that then make, what we do is to connect the behavior or the abnormal behavior with whatever happens in the brain at the cellular level. And so by doing these studies, we can say, okay, when you don't move well, it means that the neurons that is in this structure of the brain is not working. So now, why is it not working? Can we stimulate this type of neurons? Those are the kind of studies that are done in the lab.
Thank you.
We are pleased to welcome Adamo Education as a proud sponsor of Global TV Talk Show.
The concept of a microschool is the reimagining of the one-room schoolhouse. My name is Tamara Becker. I'm the president and CEO of Adamo Education. The microschool concept really does not just lend itself to the personalization and the customization of learning, but also the social development and fostering that sense of love for learning. Unlike what we see in traditional brick and mortar schools, we have multiple grade levels in the same learning space. Students can be enriched by the socialization that they get, as well as the academic support from peers. What differentiates Adamo is the fact that we are taking the best pieces of brick and mortar, of digital, and then at-home learning. Students here can come 5 days a week. They can come 4 hours a day. It will really just depend on what is best for the student and for the parent. To enroll, just reach out via phone, text, or email, and we'll have that personalized conversation, and we'll be able to get you all set. Check us out at adamoeducation.org.
Become a global player in your field.
Cross Culture to Go provides virtual support for your global business and career success.
We can help you thrive in 140 plus countries and markets.
On the web at crossculturetogo.com.
Mark Nadich, would you like to say something in closing?
Just Doctor, it's amazing work that you're doing, and it can change immensely people's lives. So I have such amazing respect for all the scientists that are working through these breakthroughs. And so thank you for what you're doing.
Thanks for being there, Mark. So, Doctor, let me ask you, this is just an off-the-wall question again. Are you tied in with a company like Abbott or AbbVie and other companies? Are they watching what you're doing?
Companies have changed a lot their way to work, and so they are less interested in exploring, like the mechanism that underlie all the different types. They want more something, once you identify a mechanism, then they are willing, or like if you have a molecule, then they will love to use that molecule and go on with this. So they have changed during the years since I started, probably because it takes them too much investment, on to really, go with the basic research. So they prefer to intervene once you are already very much advanced in one particular field.
This is very helpful, Doctor. Thank you very much for being our special guest on Medical TV and Global TV Talk Show. And please come back when you have some time and we can continue this. Mark Colo, thank you very much. I wish you well. And Mark Nadich, just love your insight and your commentary. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right, this is Ed in San Diego signing off from Global TV Talk Show. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day and stay safe.